Good morning, family. I hope you all are doing well. Excited to see you again, or at least have you see me as we continue to dive into the book of John. I've got my glasses on today. I have officially run out of contacts. That is the quarantine life for you. But want to dive into John chapter 16 today and start off with a very ironic verse, I think, that we find at the end of chapter 16 in verse 32. It says, "A time is coming, and in fact has come, when you will be scattered, each of you to your own home." A very ironic and again fitting verse for this time. I don't necessarily think Jesus was prophesying or predicting the year 2020 and the coronavirus epidemic that is going on around us. But maybe that stood out to you as you are sheltering in place at your home at this time. But more than just that, hopefully stood out to you here in chapter 16. I'll go back up to the beginning, and one verse that I love is verse 7. Verse 7, Jesus is talking to the disciples. He says, "Very truly I tell you, it is for your good that I'm going away. Unless I go away, the advocate will not come to you. But if I go, I will send him to you." I love these thoughts here in verse 7 as Jesus is explaining to his disciples that actually it is a good thing if I leave. You know, we may think about it and think, well, man, Jesus being here with us, what could be better than that? Especially during this time, maybe you feel like, man, I wish Jesus were here to kind of go around and cure those who are sick from this virus that is spreading. I wish Jesus would give us some direction on how we should act and respond during this time. But Jesus says, I've given you something even better than Jesus being with us in the flesh. He says, man, I'm giving you the advocate, his spirit, to be able to dwell within us. Man, isn't it awesome to have God's Spirit? Often we don't think about how the Spirit works in our lives. But he goes on here in verse 13 and adds to it. In verse 13 he says, "But when he, the Spirit of truth, comes, he will guide you into all the truth. He will not speak on his own. He will speak only what he hears, and he will tell you what is yet to come." Man, God's Spirit is powerful. God's Spirit is awesome to be able to guide us and direct us, to advocate for us to the Father on what we need. And man, we can fill so many different needs at this time. And certainly during this time, when we're not able to meet together, we can feel lost in our walk with God. But here he says, man, the Spirit of truth wants to guide you into all truth. Let me ask you, brothers and sisters, are you listening to the Spirit at this time? Are you trying to pay attention to how the Spirit is guiding you and directing you? Hopefully your time here in the book of John, as well as these videos, have encouraged you and helped you to be more in tune with the Spirit. But if we're not careful, we can so easily go off of our own thoughts instead of relying on how the Spirit is trying to guide us and direct us into all truth. Certainly God's Spirit is still alive. Even though we're all separate, the body is not together physically, we're still unified in spirit. And again, certainly the Spirit is at work guiding us in the right direction. Are we paying attention to it? It goes on from there, and Jesus continues to talk about his death on the cross, and he's prophesying and foreshadowing what's to come in the next few hours here. And in verse 21, this verse stood out to me. It says in 21, a woman giving birth to a child has pain because her time has come. But when the baby is born, she forgets the anguish because of her joy that a child is born into the world. Such a great analogy that Jesus draws here with a woman giving childbirth in connection with his death on the cross. That man, it is painful. And he knows that his disciples are going to be struggling as he is led away to be crucified. But he says there will be joy as he looks forward to that resurrection Sunday, and even more so, the promise of salvation that will come through his death on the cross. He says, man, it is like a woman in childbirth. Now, I can't say that I have experienced that or can really grasp what that really is like. I've seen it. However, man, I can't imagine the pain that is involved there. But I do know the joy. And certainly those of us who are parents can express the joy we have for our children. And he says, man, this is the joy you will have by having my spirit within you and being able to experience God's salvation. This is an awesome and encouraging message. How does that apply to us right now? Some of us, maybe we feel like this is a time of anguish. Maybe not quite like childbearing, but we're going through a time of pain and suffering. Will it produce gratitude in us? Will it produce that joy when this time is over to really appreciate the time we do have together with the body? Will we remember how grateful we should be for our relationships with one another? Finally, I want to leave you with verse 33. Jesus says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble. But take heart, I have overcome the world. Certainly Jesus' words ring true during our time. He says, man, in this world you will have trouble. I think that's Jesus' promise to us, and that's a promise we see coming true. This world, in many different ways, will bring us trouble. So how should we respond? Should we respond with anxiety and worry? Should we feel overwhelmed? Should we be discouraged? Certainly not. Jesus says, I have overcome the world. Did Jesus overcome the coronavirus? Okay, maybe not quite, but Jesus overcame the world. Will you overcome the temptations that are coming at you at this time? Will you overcome the temptation to be filled with anxiety? Will you overcome the temptation to be discouraged? Will you overcome the fear that is plaguing the world around us at this time? Will you, along with Jesus, overcome the world? He's already done the work for us. He just calls us to follow in his footsteps. We can have peace knowing that Jesus overcame the world. Brothers and sisters, I love you, and I hope this has been an encouragement to your faith. God bless.